Hello and welcome back to Wyoming Watch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, your state government reporter here. This week we're talking about a proposed wind farm northwest of town that was shot down by county officials after pushback from the community. Now, the wind farm company is calling for a judge to review the decision, potentially leading to legal action. Here's me with our local government reporter, Alyssa Tolman, who has been covering the issue. So now I'm here with Alyssa to talk about this wind farm and the lawsuit against the county and a lot of the public outcry against it. But before we get into that, let's start with some of the basics. Can you tell me a bit about this project, what it is and where it is and why people are upset about it?
Yes, so this is the Laramie Range Wind Project. It's the developer is called Repsol Renewables North America. They're just an energy company that I believe has windmill farms in other places in the United States. And so the wind farm, it was proposed to be located on 56,000 acres of unincorporated Laramie County land, 20 miles northwest of Cheyenne. And it was supposed to have up to 170 wind turbines on it. And the very first, I haven't been covering this story since the beginning because I haven't worked here for very long, but the first portion of it that I covered was when the site plan went to the Planning Commission, the Laramie County Planning Commissioners. They postponed it after having too many questions about it, and then I can't remember if they ended up making a recommendation or not, but regardless of that, the Laramie County Board of County Commissioners held a public hearing on September 16th, shortly after the Planning Commission's meeting, where many members of the public came forward, and it lasted just over 4 hours, I think, of people just giving their opinion on why they did not support the project. And out of all those people who came forward, I think there was probably somewhere between 20 and 30. The vast majority of them were strongly opposed to it for so many reasons. Some of them were landowners in that area, and they thought that the windmills would take away from the natural beauty of the land, and some of them were worried about wildlife impacts, environmental impacts, and road usage. I think the number one complaint was just that Cheyenne has so many windmills, and people were just saying we don't need any more. And after that public comment period, the county commissioners, in a 3-1 vote, voted the site plan down. Because I think it was Commissioner Troy Thompson was the only one to vote in favor, and it was because he believes that if you don't own the land, you can't dictate what people do on it. But everybody else on the commission, except for Gunnar Malm, because he was absent, kind of agreed that it would take away from the natural beauty. So they voted that site plan down.
Mm-hmm. And to provide a bit of context for that, I had reported on it a bit before you were on staff here, and I spoke with some of those landowners who, are leasing this land to Repsol for this wind farm. And a lot of their concerns are concerns about the agriculture and ranching industry, which is the kind of business they run there, which is, they described this lease agreement to me as another tool in their toolbox, as a way to, kind of stay afloat, a bit more stability in an unstable economy in agriculture and ranching like that. So, and you said there were a few people who spoke in favor of it. Was it kind of along those lines as well? And like what Troy Thompson was saying about people being able to have authority over their property?
Yes. One person who came forward during the public comment period, his name is Charles Farthing, who owns Farthing Ranch Company, which I believe is he's one of the principal landowners involved in the project. He said he supports the wind project because he sees it as a way to bring in additional income in future years. I guess they've been having recent difficulties due to severe drought on his ranch. And he also cited the recent boom in data centers that are looking to build in Cheyenne. And he was saying that the capital city's economy is just continuing to grow, and there's going to be a bigger need for electricity because of that. So that was another reason he supported the wind farm, but he was really one of the only ones who came forward in favor of it.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that connects to some of my other reporting that I've been working on concerning statewide property taxes, there's been continued cuts, potentially more cuts to property taxes. Laramie County Fire Authority, as a special district, is solely funded on property taxes. And in speaking with them recently, they're concerned about continued development to kind of make up for these loss in property taxes, but, not having as much revenue to keep up with the development as well. Was that, I think in your article, you referenced that a bit. Did you hear much about the concerns about fire and safety capacity for this?
I think I didn't hear so much about property taxes, but in terms of public safety, that was something that a lot of people brought up, especially because I want to say it's a rural road that leads back to this area that they would be building on. And people were having a lot of issues wondering how they would get emergency services down there if needed, fire mitigation, things like that.
And it feels like there's things like this that come up, especially with the county commissioners every once in a while, where it's sort of an interesting balance between people having autonomy over their property, but also maintaining, neighborly values or, the
beauty.
Yeah, exactly. What people in the area want to see, I guess. And so, you've had recent other reporting on this, and I'm curious, are there any through lines? I know there was something with a wedding venue a bit ago, and also with some of the land use regulations. What were the decisions on those, and do they differ from this one at all?
Well, the land use regulations that I wrote about several weeks ago now, those are the new land use regulations, which people did oppose, but specifically for this wind farm project, it actually falls under the 2022 land use regulations because those were the ones in effect when this proposal was submitted to the commissioners. So that's the new land use regulations aren't related to the wind farm at all. But the wedding venue was a separate thing. There's actually a couple different wedding venues that came before the county commissioners. I think they were both trying to get their liquor licenses, I think retail liquor license. And people opposed that because they didn't want drunk drivers near their properties or drunk people wandering onto their properties. And then kind of just in general, people were opposing the wedding venues because they didn't want the noise and the crowd in their area. But they were both of the liquor licenses for the wedding venues were approved, but the people who opposed them opposed those venues for the same reason that they opposed the wind farm. So they're kind of related in that way, just a kind of not in my backyard type thing.
In the approval from the commissioners, was the reasoning for that sort of like, I may not personally agree with this, but you have the right to do your business as long as you meet all these qualifications? Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah, I think I want to say it's probably a rule, but it may also just be like a thing that the commissioners do, that as long as you have what you need and you're ready to get started and open this business, they're not going to tell you no. They're not going to deny you a retail liquor license because you have everything else ready.
They approved those liquor licenses, but they denied this wind farm.
Yeah.
Is that largely because just the scale of it, you think? Just how large it is?
I would say so, yeah. The scale, and another big thing in this lawsuit, specifically in the court documents that I got, the reason that the commissioners denied it was because they believed that the company, Repsol Renewables, just kind of there were way too many unanswered questions and incomplete responses regarding the design of the farm, haul routes, the construction process, and impact to surrounding public roads. And then another concern they had was the Laramie County Fire Authority requested money for a tanker truck to be used for fire mitigation, and they kind of didn't really have a response for that. They didn't say whether they would or would not do that. And then impacts regarding the Quebec 01 missile alert facility, and then there was missing information about water well permits. So I think a big chunk of this was actually just because there was too many holes in the plan.
Mm-hmm. So it's less related to that wedding venue in the way that it's not the commissioners just kind of exercising power to say yes or no, but legal requirements having met all these qualifications for this project?
Yeah, so the public had concerns for the same reasons with the wind farm and the liquor or the wedding venue, but the commissioners, it was two separate things for them.
And the company, I can imagine they're saying their application was complete and everything was fine. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, they are. They submitted a petition for review. Is what the lawsuit. I guess it wouldn't technically be like a lawsuit because no one's being sued at this point. They submitted a petition for review because they think that the commissioner's decision wasn't based or didn't follow Wyoming state statute the way that it should have. They said that their site plan, which was actually submitted, their site plan application, which was submitted on June 27th, in the court documents, the company said that that site plan demonstrated the project's compliant with the standards for large wind energy systems as required by the county's 2022 land use regulations. So that's pretty much, yeah, in a nutshell, they believe that they did have everything they needed, but the commissioners did not.
Sure. And in your article, you also referenced some other legal actions that Repsol has been involved in to the west in Albany County. Can you tell me a bit about what that story is and maybe how that, if at all, how that relates to this situation?
Yeah, I just kind of found out about that. I don't even remember. I think I just kind of looked up ConnectGen to see what it was, and it article from the Laramie Boomerang, which is our sister newspaper in Laramie, had written about it. In the last article was in 2024, I think, but they've written so many articles leading up to that point about ConnectGen, this same company that is filing the petition for review, was actually trying to build a wind farm in Albany County as well, called the Rail Tie Wind Project, which would have been up to 149 wind turbines. And the commissioners had actually approved the project, and the Wyoming Industrial Siting Council approved their permit, and they went through the whole process, but the Albany County residents really strongly opposed that project, citing all the same concerns that the people here had with the Laramie Range Wind Project. And because of that, the county residents and landowners filed a case in Albany County District Court, but it was appealed after it ended in a ruling against them. So in April of 2023, they took the case to the Wyoming Supreme Court, which upheld the same decision that the Albany County courts made. So in all, the residents were trying to put a stop to that wind farm, but it ended up not ending in their favor. So now that wind farm is going to be operational by 2026.
Mm-hmm. And were there any concerns, I guess, from the Albany County commissioners? There were no concerns about the application itself if they had approved it. At the time, it was only the residents who opposed it, not the commissioners?
Yes, I believe so. It seemed like it was a pretty quick, well, not quick, but a pretty easy decision for them to make. I think when the project was presented to the commissioners in July of 2021, the commissioners approved it that same day. Mm-hmm. And then that's when the residents decided to take legal action.
Mm-hmm. And I think the last thing to talk about is, how is the judge going to be reviewing this decision? What factors specifically are they looking for that could rule either in the county's or Repsol's favor?
There's 4 issues to be addressed outlined in the court document or the petition for review. And it's District Judge Nathaniel Hibben who is assigned to this case. So he is supposed to be reviewing whether the commissioner's denial of the site plan should be held unlawful, an abuse of discretion, or otherwise not in accordance of law. The second is if the denial exceeded statutory jurisdiction. And the third is whether it was made without observance or procedure required by law. And then he's also supposed to be looking at whether the denial of the site plan is unsupported by substantial evidence in a case reviewed on the record of an agency hearing provided by statute. So it's really just the company is thinking that the commissioners didn't follow state statute or Wyoming law or county law or whatever. They just think they kind of went out of their bounds by denying it.
Great. And your article says that there's currently no timeline on when this will unfold. Is that still the case?
I believe so, yeah. There's nothing has been released since the petition was filed this past Friday. And I went and got the most recent version yesterday, so I believe that's the most up-to-date information.
Great. Well, thank you, Alyssa. That's all I've got. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Great. Well, if you haven't read the article, it's called Energy Company Pursues Legal Action Following Denial of Laramie Range Wind Project. You can read it on wyomingnews.com or in our Thursday print edition. Now, here's Taylor Staples, our arts and entertainment reporter, to bring us a quick roundup of some upcoming events in Cheyenne and Laramie County this week.
This is the last weekend to catch CLTP's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs of the Black Forest tonight and tomorrow at 7 p.m. and 2 p.m. on Sunday. Antigone is also playing tonight at 7:30 p.m. at LCCC's Playhouse Building. And the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra has their monthly lunch and learn at noon at the library to prepare for this weekend's concert. Tonight is also the Friday Art Walk. This month will be hosted at Blue Raven, and the walk goes from 5 to 8 p.m. And finally, Fred Armisen is coming to the Lincoln at 7 p.m. as part of his Comedy for Musicians, but Everyone is Welcome tour. On Saturday, November 15th, the day starts with a Cheyenne Audubon field trip to Laramie Plains Lakes from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They will be meeting in Lions Park for that. Then, the Winter Farmers Market is at the Depot again from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and the Botanic Gardens is hosting a Winter Rose Zentangle workshop from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Also, there's a library book club from noon to 1 p.m. and cat trivia at the Cats and Coffee Connections Cafe from 1 to 3 p.m. Then, the Cheyenne Creativity Center has seed bead stitching from 1 to 4 p.m. Sean McGowan has a solo guitar recital at the library from 1:30 to 4 p.m. And the library is also hosting a holistic guitar workshop from 2 to 4 p.m. And to top off the night is CSO's Land That I Love concert at 7:30 p.m. at the Cheyenne Civic Center. On Sunday, November 16th, the Cheyenne Pump House is hosting tours from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Cats and Coffee Connections has a DIY workshop from 1 to 3 p.m. And the library has a novel writing workshop from 1 to 3 p.m. For concerts, Jason Buchanan and the Short Timers, featuring Pleasure People and Sean Hess, will perform at the Lincoln at 2 p.m., and LCCC is hosting a vocal showcase at 3 p.m. in the Surbrook Prentice Auditorium. On Monday, November 17th, there's a matinee movie for mindful aging at the library from 1:30 to 4 p.m. This month's movie is The Boys in the Boat. On Tuesday, November 18th, the library is hosting its final Senior Planet session on navigating the digital age from 10 to 11:15 a.m. Also, the Cheyenne Audubon Society has a Feather Trails book talk with author Sophie Osborne at 6:30 p.m., also at the library. And there's a meditation session at the library from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. On Wednesday, November 19th, the What Lies Beyond photography exhibit has its reception from 10 a.m. to noon at LCCC's Esther and John Clay Fine Art Gallery. And the UW Extension is hosting a financial checklist session about preparing for a prosperous new year from noon to 1 p.m. at LCCC's Surbrook Prentice Auditorium. Then, there's a suicide prevention training from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the library, open studio time from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Cheyenne Creativity Center, and a paint party from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Pine Bluffs Library branch. Finally, on Thursday, November 20th, Primrose is hosting Friendsgiving from noon to 2. Thankful Thursdays is highlighting After School for Kids starting at 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Way Event Hall, and the Creativity Center is hosting a printmaking and collage workshop at 5:30 p.m. Also on November 20th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., the library has a true crime book club, and Antigone will be shown again at LCCC's Playhouse at 7:30 p.m. For a full list of events, go to wyomingnews.com.
And finally, before we close out today, here's a quick recap of some of our top stories and headlines from this past week. Officers continue to investigate the death of an 18-year-old male who was fatally shot Wednesday night in the 600 block of Ridgeland Street in Northwest Cheyenne. The police arrived on scene at approximately 8 p.m. Wednesday and located the 18-year-old with an apparent gunshot wound, and he was declared deceased. U.S. Gold Corp, an American exploration and development company, has announced an agreement to acquire a 10-acre parcel of land to aid in the construction and operation of the planned gold mine after acquiring the mineral lease west of town in 2016. The local man arrested in the fatal shooting of a 19-year-old in the parking lot of King Soopers pleaded not guilty Monday afternoon in Laramie County District Court. Judge Robin S. Cooley accepted Mansour Ali's plea, but denied a request by his attorney, Crystal Stewart, to reduce his bond. As the longest federal government shutdown in the nation's history comes to an end, Wyoming's federal delegation points fingers across the aisle amid healthcare price concerns. And Wyoming Democrats, though thankful SNAP funds should soon be restored, are concerned about what this means for Americans' healthcare premiums. And finally, after former state Senator Anthony Bouchard made online sexual abuse allegations against Wyoming businessman Reed Reisner last year, Reisner sued Bouchard for defamation. On Wednesday, they met in court. That's all for this week's episode of Wyoming Watch. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check back next Friday for more.